Hey traders, Mike Katz here with 7 Points Capital. Good to be back. A little quieter day today, not a whole lot going on. Looking at the SPYs, we see that we had a pretty small range. Looks like from 273, about a $2 range. Consider, usually that's not a small range, but with regards to recent activity, it's been a little bit smaller. So lots of action previously, looks like, last few days, last few weeks, bigger bars, but today was a little bit quieter. And the SPYs were just basically reacting to every piece of news that came out regarding the potential trade wars and steel tariffs and everything that's been going around with that story right now. So the market basically rallied when Republican, I forget what his name, but he said that most likely the trade wars are not going to take place. They're going to lower the tariffs on steel. Market rallied and then got choppy. And then near the close, Trump was giving a conference with the Swedish president, and that seems to have generated some volume near the close. Right now, it looks like it's a lot of news-driven moves, and which is probably why we have such small range. I mean, we'll see which way that plays out, but the SPYs as a whole holding okay. Looks like they had a nice dip late last week, and came back above 270. And now we just want to see, do we retest the lows or take out 280 and retest the highs? So no idea what's going to happen, just will react, and that's pretty much that. Let's move on real quick. AMDA was my best stock on the day. This one had gapped up. Let's see, the news was FDA clearance on some implant device, and it didn't matter, right? This company loses money, doesn't have any cash, fundamentally is pretty weak, and you can see on the daily chart it's a former runner, and every time it goes up, it comes right back down. So this was, a pretty easy idea on the short side. Now the execution was also not too bad. We had the opening print. Let's look at this one real quick. The opening bar, at this point, I remember it opened 305-ish, somewhere around here, very quickly within 1 minute, shoots up to 340. And at this point, I was thinking, wow, this might go to $4, even though it's trash. You never know, these things can run. And then within the same minute, it gets smacked down really hard to below $3. And at that point, I thought to myself, well, a big volume bar, over 500,000 shares are traded, and big range, and that's pretty much everybody who's chasing or had some market on open orders that got screwed on the open, and then everybody who bought that is going to be out of the money. And so I just basically joined the short side from here, thinking everybody who's stuck here is going to have to be made whole for this thing to reclaim 340. So I started trading versus 350. And let's look at the executions. Is this AMDA? Yep, it is. So looking at the executions, got a nice fill here. As it went below $3, it hung around 295 to 298 range for a while. Got a pretty nice fill there. Nothing too massive because I'm still risking 50 cents on the trade. And then when it goes down pretty quick, I try to take versus 281. I take a little bit less than half off, thinking if we do get a push back up to $3, I'll be able to size back on, and then probably risk versus 311. So it just ended up drifting lower, and at this point the tape was saying weakness, so I sized back in a little bit, covered on the wash, and then on the bounce when it looked like it was going to top out, put some more on, and then added some more on more weakness as it made a lower high. And at this point I'm already starting to trade versus $3 figure, and add as it works, cover, re-add, cover, and then I didn't put any more back on after 11 o'clock. From that point on, it was just cover, 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 and I scaled my way out as it started working, coming down. When it broke 250 here, I canceled my buys and tried to get more out of it, and that ended up being a really nice trade. So AMDA, I'm all out of this one, and this was a pretty easy trade. Could have had a better entry, but the way it shot up, it just looked like it had some strength, and then the way it came down so hard, it looked like it had weakness. So that's when I joined the weakness. So that's that one. Let's see, anything else I want to mention here other than the fact that it was down and flagging, bear flag for most of the morning. You know, no other comments here. Just 250 held once, twice, no one broke, it went lower, but you can see the bear flag here on the move down. That gave us a clue that this was going to head lower. So that's AMDA. This is another one that we saw off the scanner, AMTX. This is, again, you could see here on the daily, another stock that's trending down. Every time it looks like it wants to go up, you know, it sells off again. So my thesis was this is trash. And looking at that, let's look at the 1 minute here. And let me bring up this one here, AMTX. So on this chart, started to, so I was watching it here, and at $1, that's going to be resistance. Took that pretty easily. $1.10, $1.20, $1.50, and it looked like it might go to $1.50 at this point. So I kind of waited, wanted to see how close it gets to $1.50, and it pulls back to $1.10, and then goes up again. And then when this thing starts to stall out, puts like 3 green candles in, makes a lower high. When it starts to curl back down, that's when I start getting involved on the short side. And at this point, I was trading it versus, if I'm not mistaken, versus, yeah, so versus 151 is where I started trading here. So that's why I'm a little bit smaller here. And then when it fails to make a new high, comes back down, makes a lower high. At this point, I'm thinking most likely we can start trading versus 131 instead of 151. This high of day, and 130 being another 10-cent level. That's where I was trading against, and I was able to add here as it was curling back down, decent size, and covered on the wash, and then started scaling back in a little bit too early here on a bounce. I was basically thinking that, you know, this area here was going to serve as overhead resistance, so it came down. As it was coming back up into this resistance, I was looking to short some more there, but it ended up going higher, and I was ready to take this off. If it was going to reclaim highs, get above 130, I was going to take this off. But I noticed one thing here, which I'll be able to mention on the other chart, the one with the volume profile. And I made a note here so that I remember to mention it in the video, and that's here, disagree on price. And what I want to discuss for a minute here is, what do I mean by this? Disagree on price versus agree on price. Where price spends a lot of time, that means that there's agreement on price. When you want to buy, I want to sell, I want to buy, somebody else wants to sell. There's an agreement on price, and we keep on transacting. And then at the point where there's an imbalance is where you get a move, right? If we don't agree on price, then you're going to get a move, because there's going to be demand, you know, that's going to be stronger than supply, or vice versa. So I noticed that in this consolidation, we're trading and it likes these prices because it's spending a lot of time here. And then every time it would go up to this area here, there was a disagreement on price. And how do I know that? Well, the way I know that is because it would get rejected pretty fast. And then again, it comes back up and gets rejected and comes back to the price that everybody agrees on. And then again, it tries to come back up here and gets rejected. So that tells me that there's disagreement on price here. And if it's pulling back from this level back to the downside, well, it tells me that the disagreement is where there are more sellers and not enough buyers. And how do we know that there aren't enough transactions going on here? And that's where my volume profile comes in. And you can see that everybody's happy to trade between 110 and 120. But as soon as it gets above 120, there's much less volume that is traded here above 120. Tells me that the disagreement on price, is that there aren't enough buyers and there are more sellers, and every time that's why it gets rejected by this area. So that kind of gave me the confidence to stay with the trade and let it see if it wants to reclaim this area, because it proved a few times that it could not reclaim and hold above this 120 area. And at that point I was already pretty big with my size, but if I wasn't fully loaded, I probably would have, put some more on as it would get to this area and then cover it and repeat. But that's basically the concept I want to get across, where there are a lot of trades happening, a lot of volume and consolidation. That means that there's an agreement on price, and where there is movement away from a certain level and it's confirmed by the volume profile not trading a lot of volume there, it tells me that there's a disagreement on price. And the way we figure out what side has the imbalance is by what happens away from the area where there's disagreement. So hopefully that's clear. If anybody has any questions, again, feel free to reach out on Twitter. But that's what I look at, and I'm always trying to figure out who's winning, the buyers or the sellers, the buyers or the sellers. And then this thing didn't really unwind by any means. It just ended up going out near the low of the range, but it felt like it was weak, and we'll see which way it goes. So I covered most of it, holding some overnight, see if he wants to get back to this 80-90 range. Risk reward is not fantastic because this is pretty cheap stock, but I'm just going to try to stay with it and see which way it wants to go. Other than that, this was another nice trade. And then BZUN, I'll make this quick. BZUN, I made an error, and basically I could have done better, where I took off the trade here thinking that, well, first of all, I put the trade on the long side here thinking that it's an uptrend, it's a pullback in an uptrend right around here, and I was going to give it till below 42, below VWAP, below this pivot, and it kind of started going sideways, and the tape kind of shook me out, and I said, all right, I'll get out on a bounce, try to get out near break even, because this was going to be resistance. And I did that, and then not only did I get out, I got short here. Basically, I juked myself out of the trade, and I no longer was able to capitalize on a move that I initially thought was going to happen. And the error here that I had was that I didn't let my stops take me out. It wasn't any of my rules to get out. Oh, we got a fire drill coming, so I'll make this quick. I got out prematurely, and I didn't let the stops take me out. So that's it. Lesson learned. It doesn't mean that I won't make this mistake again, but if I can just minimize how often I make it and the damage that's done by this mistake, I'll keep on doing better. Other than that, it was a good day. A couple of really good winners. This one was a loser, and that's pretty much it. Overall, market seemed a little bit with a narrower range. We'll see which way it wants to resolve itself the next couple of days. Thank you guys for watching. Mike Katz, 7 Points Capital, with today's trader takeaways.